Well, hello CADA friends, my name is Ron Ippolito. I am currently serving as your CADA president, and today we're going to learn how to be a more confident communicator. Now, there are a couple ways that you can use this lesson. First of all, you could teach this lesson to your student leaders, or you could press play and show this to your student leaders and have me teach them this lesson. Either way, it's going to be a great time, so let's go ahead and jump right in. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the first part of our lesson of how to be a confident communicator, which is interpersonal communication. The first part, step one, is eye contact. Now, I know this should go without saying, but so often we get uncomfortable looking people in the eye, looking people face to face, especially since we were on devices so long during the pandemic, and let's face it, now that we're hopefully moving out of the pandemic, we're still looking at our devices quite a bit. So it can be a little awkward to make face-to-face contact, but as humans, we are wired to look at each other's faces. So when you make eye contact, you notice right now I'm making eye contact with the camera lens, right? That tells you that I think that you're important, that I value you, and that I want to communicate directly to you. So when you use eye contact with someone else, you're letting them know that they're important and that you value them. So make sure when you're in interpersonal communication, step one, make eye contact. Step two, I'm going to encourage you to listen with your whole body, right? You'll notice right now that I am communicating with my whole body. I am gesticulating with my hands. But when you're listening, right? Because part of being a great communicator is also knowing how to listen. So I always use the open palm gesture. I'll either have my hands out. You might not be able to see it, but right now my palms are open, right? Facing toward the person that I'm speaking with. When you have your arms crossed, or when you have your hands in your pockets or your hands behind your back, body language experts say that this is showing a lack of trust, right? Or that you have something to hide. So always hold that open palm gesture. That open palm gesture lets the other person know that you are willing to listen to them, that you're open to what they have to say, that you're open to new ideas, and that you want to listen, truly listen to them as a human. The third thing is going to be to ask inviting questions. In a conversation, it's really easy to just be like, hey, are you having a good day today? And it's a simple yes or no question, and then the conversation stops. So I'm going to encourage you to ask inviting questions. Instead of like, are you having a good day today? Are you having fun today? Which is a simple yes or no answer. Instead, ask a question like, what are 3 things that you've learned so far today that have been awesome, right? Or what's one part of your day that you wish would have gone better? Or what are you looking forward to this weekend? Something that's open-ended, and there is actually, if you click on the link in the description of this video, you're going to see a list of great open-ended questions that you can ask if you're going to be practicing being a confident communicator and practicing those interpersonal communication skills. You can use that list of questions to really get the conversation started. The final tip that I'm going to give on interpersonal communication is shut out the FOMO. FOMO, F-O-M-O, as we know, stands for fear of missing out. It's wondering, like, is there something else that's going on that's more exciting than this conversation that we're having right here? Hopefully the answer is no. Hopefully the answer is, you know what, I am 100% focused on what you're saying and engaging in conversation with you. But you know, the number one distractor is this thing in our pockets right here. It's our phones. So whenever we're having a conversation and we're talking back and forth, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh wait, hold on. And then you're looking down at your phone. Not only is that just rude, but it also sends the signal to that person that you're talking with that they're not the most important person right now, right? That there's something else going on. You're afraid of missing out on something. Now, if you're truly expecting an important message, an important phone call, an important text, you know, somebody's going to be telling you that they're on their way to pick you up or whatever the situation is, let that person know in advance. That way they know that you're expecting something and they're not going to take it personally, right? But whenever possible, shut out the FOMO. If there's stuff going on, distractions going on in the background, if you're outdoors and doing an activity, doing a conversation activity like you can with the questions that I'm providing you, shut out all of the other distractions that might be going on campus or in your classroom or wherever you happen to be. Just focus on the face and the voice of the person that you're talking to. All right, now we're going to quickly talk about large group communication, and for this I have 6 tips for you to be a better large group communicator when you're speaking in front of a pep rally or an assembly or anywhere where you might be in front of a large crowd of people, right? So step 1 is the rule of thumb. Whenever you're working with a microphone, you always want to get that microphone around a thumb's distance apart from your mouth. The reason why is you don't want to be on top of it so close that the sound is distorted, right? You don't want that. You don't want to be too close. At the same time, you don't want it to be too far away because then it's tougher to hear you. And the person who's operating the sound system, they can only turn that mic level up so much before it starts to feedback or sound distorted. So general rule of thumb is a thumb's distance away between the microphone and your mouth. Next rule, rule number 2, is don't yell into the microphone. You might be tempted, and it's perfectly appropriate to yell, especially if you're in an outdoor setting or you're in a big, like in a gym or some other, like big format. When you want to really get people hyped up. But if you want to do that, move the microphone away, move it down or move it behind your back, and you can yell, "Let's go seniors," right? You definitely want to get that volume, and sometimes the best way to express that with your whole body is by yelling, but just never yell into a microphone. First of all, you could potentially damage the microphone itself, you could damage the speakers, or you could just hurt people's ears. You don't want to turn your audience off by hurting their ears right at the start of a pep rally. So definitely make sure that you move the microphone away from your mouth. If you're ever going to yell, do not yell into a mic. The third thing I want to mention is to be aware of your body language and understand the types of signals that your body sends, right? So just like with the interpersonal communication, you want to have that open palm gesture if your arms are crossed or behind your back or your hands are in your pockets. What that's sending, that signal that it's sending is that you're nervous, and of course you might be nervous if you're speaking in front of 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 people or more, but you definitely want to have an open posture, open body language, and then that leads us into our fourth tip, which is to use proximity with your audience, right? So just like a good teacher, you notice in a classroom, if there are a couple of students that are talking or that aren't paying attention, some teachers will yell or, "Hey, you, be quiet." But the really, really skilled teachers are the ones who move over to that part of the classroom and they use their proximity to those students, and then those students pay attention, right? Now, you can't necessarily, in a crowd of 1,000 people, you can't walk up and down the bleachers to get everybody's attention, but what you can do is you can walk from one side of the bleachers to another. You can use eye contact, right? You can be engaging, always positive, always positively engaging, right? Never like, "Hey, freshman, you suck, you're too quiet." Never that. Always, if you want to get those freshmen engaged or those 6th or 7th graders engaged, you use your body and move to that part of the gym or that part of the audience and get them positively engaged. "I know you can do better. I know you can be louder. Let's go, let's do this," right? Always positive and using proximity and using that positive body language. Tip number 5. This is something that I see a lot, especially recently. I've been doing this for 25 years now. It used to be that we didn't have a choice. We would always, whenever we had a script, we would always have a clipboard, right? Or we would always have note cards. Those of you who have been doing this long enough, you remember the good old days, the old-fashioned days, right? Today, what I notice is that when we have assemblies or other school activities, a lot of times we have students looking on their phones, reading a script on their phones, right? I'm going to, and maybe I'm just old-fashioned, but I feel like whenever you're looking on your phone, it looks like you're distracted. It looks like there's something else going on, and people figure out that you're reading a script on your phone, but I'm going to recommend, maybe it is old-fashioned, but I've asked students, and they say that the speaker looks more engaged when you and not only do you look more engaged, but you look more organized if you have your notes on a clipboard or if you have your notes on note cards, right? You'll still see this even in like on game shows, right? Or Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel, those the late night talk show hosts, they're still using old-fashioned cards, right? They're not necessarily they don't always have their questions or whatever on electronic. Sometimes they use electronics, but a lot of times they're still using the cards, and they'll even, if you really do some planning in advance, they'll even have branding on the back, right? So maybe you have your school logo on the back of note cards or something where you're going to keep your script or you're going to keep your notes for whatever it is you're saying. So I'm going to say that you look more organized when you have a clipboard or when you have note cards as opposed to when you are trying to look at stuff on your phone. And your 6th and final tip for how to be a confident communicator in a large group communication setting is to adjust your personal volume to fit the moment. Yes, in a pep rally, it's good to be loud. It's good to have a lot of energy. But sometimes, if you really want to grab students' attention, and again, this is a trick that you learn after being a teacher for many years, sometimes instead of being louder, sometimes the trick is to actually be quieter. Because when you're quieter and you lower your volume, and you kind of lean in, then students lean in, right? They're like, what are they trying to say? I want to listen. So a lot of times if you lower your volume, your audience, not always, but this happens a lot of times, your audience will lower their volume and lean in so they can hear what you have to say. So don't always think that you always have to be loud and big and boisterous and energetic, which is a good thing in school activities, but sometimes you want to use your volume, lower your volume, or modulate your volume to fit the mood, to really get your audience engaged and to bring them in. All right, well, I hope those tips have been helpful. Large group communication tips, interpersonal communication tips, and that bell means my time is up. Thanks so much, CADA adult leaders and Castle student leaders. I appreciate your time, and hopefully you can be a more confident communicator. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.